Micro Miniature Museum. Statue of Liberty in the Eye of a Needle and Goya's the 2nd of May 1808 on a grain of rice. Micro Gigantic Museum. The Ethnological Museum. Antonio Marco Museum. There's a little model of Bethlehem and various other model buildings. The Museum of Torture or Historical Medieval Museum. The Guadalest Valley Museum. The Ribera Girona Museum, which is a contemporary art museum. The Salt and Pepper Shaker Museum, classic, and Casa Orduña Municipal Museum. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 that we have listed here from
Guadalest, which is the topic of today's podcast, Made in Spain.
Welcome to episode 5, everyone. We are your co-host,
Nalini Sharma
and Laura Senior Garcia. We are super happy to be here discussing with you the unique, quirky, and very, very special town of Guadalest.
It is, okay, I first discovered the town when we moved here, and I needed a dog sitter. And I just looked up and she said, oh, you're in this town. She said, I'm 10, 15 minutes from you. It's very easy to find. You just drive up through the town, and on the other side, and I showed you the other day when we went up there. The drive, for anybody who has not done that drive, it can be a little bit nerve-wracking because
especially if you're afraid of heights.
Yes, you're going up the mountain. You go up and then you kind of come down again. So I went, and that was the first time I sort of discovered it. But I used to go, not all the time, but anytime I needed somebody to watch the dog, I would have to drive the dog up there. So I became very familiar with the town. And because it's close to where I am, not that I didn't think it was special, but it was just somewhere that I went. But it is such a cute, very interesting place.
Yes. Guadalest is a gorgeous little town. I would say it's when you're driving up there, you have to look twice to kind of go, oh, wait a second. Is there like a fortress or a castle built on the actual mountain? So it's like a peak, and on it there's this fortress, and we'll talk a little bit about that in a little bit here. But really, what's spectacular about it is if you're visiting the Costa Blanca, if you're visiting, Altea, Benidorm, even Valencia, and you want to do a little drive, you are going to find this very special town. I think total is about 25 minutes away from the beach. So it's about 25 minutes away from the coast.
It's not that far.
It's close. As Nalini said, the drive is not for the faint-hearted if you are afraid of heights. If not, the road is absolutely fine, but it's very, very special. So a few very unique things about Guadalest. So I didn't know when we first started talking about doing an episode about Guadalest, just exactly how many people visit there. Because sometimes when you go in the summer, parking is a little crazy. So recommendation, if you can get there in the spring, when all the almond trees on the drive are in blossom. So we've got actually some beautiful almonds here on the table that came from there. But the almond trees are in blossom. You see also quite a lot of olive trees and, just like the gorgeous also like little flowers that are growing on the trees and stuff. I think spring is definitely an ideal time to visit.
I mean, it's really stunning. And I would recommend that if you are driving up there, and you're not taking a tour.
Make a day out of it.
Yeah, you make a little, you could spend the entire day there.
For sure.
But first of all, I would recommend finding a restaurant and making a reservation, number one, because you can't really, it's a small town. You sort of have to have a reservation to get, a nice table.
Absolutely true. There are a lot of different restaurants. I think some that are particularly special. There's one that's called El Rio, which is actually where we bought some of our products here. And again, it's right in the middle of that mountain area. Yeah. Then you have one that actually has views to the valley. So in Spanish, it's called El Valle de Guadalest. So it's the valley. In certain places, you can actually see the sea. So also, in the summer, some people do swim in the reservoir.
Do they?
I believe you can swim. I looked this up, and I think it's not like quote unquote forbidden to swim. So if it is, sorry, but I think you can swim in there. So the cool thing, and the reason why we're talking about when to visit, it does get very, very busy in the summer. And actually, when we looked at the numbers, Guadalest receives an astonishing over 2 million people on average a year that visit the town.
I believe it. If you decide that, for example, the odd time will say, let's walk the dogs around the reservoir, and it's in the middle of the summer. I mean, we've made that mistake before because, first of all, you cannot, number one, get through the town, and there is absolutely zero parking.
Yes. So if you're going to take a tour, maybe not a bad idea. When you go on the bus, you don't have to worry about parking. If you are driving up there, definitely need to plan to spend a little time finding where to park. Yeah.
Leave early. And I would also suggest that there were a lot of places, like when we went up this week, we kind of went last minute, but you can pack a little picnic. There are little lookout points. You can stop. You can pull the car over safely, like not in a dangerous area at all, and have a little
next
picnic
to the reservoir.
I think nice.
It's gorgeous, so romantic as well. If you want to take like a little, like a romantic picnic, I think it's also a beautiful place to do that. So almost or around 2 million people average a year. And the interesting thing is their
very funny.
Total number of people who live there, would you say inhabitants, or is under 300 people.
Yeah, that's insane.
So it's, if you think about that, like about 300 people that are actually registered and live in Guadalest, and 2 million people visiting a year, may shed some light into the crazy amount of museums they have. So we just read it at the beginning of the episode, but I told Nalini, like, you're going to see some pretty odd museums. Like, one of the things that, really shocked me is like when I read about the Salt and Pepper Museum. It's like, okay, so what do you call those? The
shakers.
The shakers, right? Salt and Pepper Shaker Museum. I believe they have a collection of over 20,000 salt and pepper shakers. And now every time I see a cute salt and pepper shaker, I think, well, I wonder if they'll have this in the museum.
She picks it up. She's like, oh, look how cute.
So let's talk a little bit about the history. Yep. So the actual fortress was built originally by the Muslims, and it dates from the 11th century.
It is an ancient town.
So medieval, like it goes from medieval to the modern ages. The fortress itself was shook by two major earthquakes around 1600s and 1700s, which is interesting because this area is not really prone to earthquakes, but it seems to be that at that point there was two major earthquakes that almost destroyed the fortress. And then in the mid 1600s, the Orduña family from the Basque country built the castle of Guadalest. That castle of Guadalest was basically owned or ruled by them. I'm not sure if you say ruled like in the 1700s, but it was they were the owners, you could say.
I mean, they controlled the area.
They did.
And that family controlled the area, if I'm not mistaken, for
300 years.
Yeah, the entirety of the history of Guadalest until it turned over to the municipal town.
Yes, so 300 years. So if you go to the museum, you're going to see paintings from the family. You actually get to learn a little bit more about them. But it was if you look at in terms of where the wars happened and the Muslim people had to leave that area, that was one of the remaining areas because it was extremely strategic for war. Now, when you go to the town and you see where the fortress is located,
and you can see everything,
the valley, you can basically, the way I kind of visualize it is, imagine you are in that fortress. They're going to take days to get there if they're coming up with like an army.
And you can see them.
You have like the whole time while they're coming up, to plan because you can see them from the fortress. So it's a very, very cool place. The reservoir itself is almost 10 kilometers to do a full walk around, but you can't walk around the whole reservoir. And what's neat about it is a lot of people think when influencers and different people post pictures from the reservoir that there's a filter on it because the water looks so blue.
I've gone up there a few times with the dogs, and it is... it's this turquoise blue. I don't know why it's that color. I have no idea why.
But the water is really beautiful.
So beautiful.
It's almost like you're on a beach in Barbados, and it's like that kind of blue.
And there is actually, have you gone for a walk around it?
Yeah.
There is a beach area. Have you gone
like
to the
a little beach?
Yeah, there's a little beach. So I have not seen, but I did go in the winter, so it was a bit cold. I don't know if in the summer people set up on the beach and go in the water. I'm not sure.
Apparently, they do seem to go in the water, which would be an interesting experience. It's probably cold. Like most of these bodies of water when they're like in mountains, lagoons, reservoirs.
People live in the back there though.
They do. There's actually a lot of different countryside houses there.
Because if you walk across the bridge, for anybody who's been to Guadalest and the reservoir, if you walk across that bridge, often you have to kind of move to the side because a car's coming through.
Yeah.
And they kind of go up the road and then they turn off and you realize this is a neighborhood. People actually live here.
Absolutely. One of the 300 people that is registered in the town probably lives there.
But are probably super annoyed that on a sunny, warm weekend, everybody's at the reservoir.
The cool thing, though, is that the people who own the museums, who own the restaurants, who own the cafes, obviously the town lives off tourism. So everybody is very happy and welcoming to see the people from outside there. And that's not the case everywhere in Spain, as we've noticed and experienced in different places. But there, it's really, really welcoming. Also, there's little towns around the area as well. If you don't just want to stay in Guadalest and want to see kind of more of the rural, I would say, part of this area. So Benimantei, Benitachel, Benifato. So you'll hear a lot of Beni comes from, when those areas were populated by mostly Muslim.
Right.
So, and also the architecture and the agriculture. So you see the terraces, as they call them, where you have the trees to make the most out of the space in that kind of hilly and mountainous area. They have all these rocks on the side that really delineate the terraces. That comes from that culture. And that's why one of the things I love about this area is that the mix of cultures that has been brewing here. You have Muslim, Catholic, Jewish, through hundreds of years. And that's really created this very special kind of spot, I would say.
And it's also, I mean, you can use Guadalest as an example, but you can go to so many different towns here in Spain, and they're modern, but they're also preserved in time.
Oh, absolutely.
It's like you're living with one foot in both worlds. And I was actually really sad because when we went, I think when we went for lunch a few weeks ago, we went to Benifato.
Yes, Benifato.
Okay. I saw a sign for, I think, new apartments. New apartments, and I thought, I understand it's progress and, it brings money to the economy and to the town, etc. But it's just so pretty. You kind of want it to stay the same.
And also some of the houses, the townhouses, are really hundreds of years old. Now they've been rebuilt, and obviously we don't have donkeys inside the house anymore, which some of them actually had like a little space for their animals inside. But they're still the original ones. Same thing as some of the families. You'll still speak to the great-grandchildren, of
who
people.
Still there.
Yeah, of who are still there.
We had a lovely lunch in Benifato.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know the name of the restaurant we ate at.
It is called La Venta de Benifato.
Oh,
and it's
beautiful.
Being there, you can see the pictures of the grandparents, that established it. So really a great little detour, I would say, if you're coming
far.
to this area.
5-10 minutes from Benifato.
Benifato from Guadalest.
It's right there.
But definitely worthwhile. I think the other thing as well that is worth mentioning about that kind of beautiful area is that, it's you can go for the day experience, but they've also built a lot of very unique hotels in that area. And that is very recent. Those hotels 10 years ago, 12 years ago weren't there. But you have the Vivod, which is Vivood. It's kind of a hard one. That's on the more expensive side, but that is in the Benimantei, Guadalest area.
Actually, I think their hotel, the back entrance to it, you can go right from the reservoir.
Really?
Yeah, because I know when I was walking around, it says there's a sign where the property, you have your pass key, you can go in as a guest from that side.
Oh, nice. So that one, every time I've looked, to stay.
It's the same price.
Yeah,
it doesn't
it's
change.
like 500 euros a night or something like that. So it is on the pricier side, but it's a unique experience. They have a nice restaurant there, focus on like, healthy food, etc. And just recently, we also found out there's two new developments. There's one that's called a Galaxy, which is one of those where you're actually in a bubble.
Yeah, the bubble.
And you can see the sky, the stars, while you're sleeping there. So basically it's supposed to give you a in nature experience without having to camp, which I am not a camper.
But now, Laura, you just told me there's glamping.
I'll do glamping. We'll do an episode on glamping.
Well, there's glamping there now
near Benitacha. And I would almost consider the bubbles almost like glamping.
I think so.
It's a hotel, but at the end of the day, you're basically in a big plastic bubble.
Yeah. And then the glamping, I saw they have these really cool tents.
Yes.
It's pet friendly.
Yes, it's beautiful.
It's not directly in Guadalest. It's a few, like a 5-10 minute drive from Guadalest.
But very close to the area.
Yeah.
So you can either do the bubbles. If you're on a smaller budget, you can do the vibod. If you're on a larger budget, definitely eating out is not expensive. There's a couple of slightly higher end restaurants, but not expensive at all. And for those that want to see the cultural side of what it looks like in more rural areas of Spain that still preserve that beauty of ancient history, definitely the spot to go.
Yeah, I love it. It's a really nice day trip. And this week we actually went up to a little shop, a little local artisan shop.
So I would say that when you're up there, I would definitely look at the liquors. They have some interesting local liquors that we'll be trying on our challenge that we'll do for social media. So watch out for that. Lots of hearty dishes as well. So some of the dishes from up there, one of them is called olleta de blat in Valenciano. So there's a lot of Valenciano speaking people there. And the olleta de blat is actually made, blat, I think, is trigo, which is what do you call that in English? Trigo, not corn. It wouldn't be corn. It's
like the wheat.
Yeah, wheat. Yeah. So it's the actual wheat cereal. So that's what they make it of. So it's very hearty. So it's very, very good.
The market we went to, the man there, he was so lovely. We walk into all these places and we say, "Hey, we're doing a podcast."
Hi, we're here.
They're always, and we never, we usually call to find out if they're closed, for siesta. And we just walk in and say, "Yeah, we're doing a podcast." And they're always so happy and excited. "Oh, really? That's interesting. Here, let me show you this. Let me show you that." So we asked them specifically for products from the area, which, first of all, we have the almonds.
Yes, so we're not going to try here, but Nalini asked me, have you ever opened one of these almonds? I'm like, yes, you can do it with just 2 stones. It's not exactly very sexy, I would say it like that, but it's I would say very rudimentary. You just take it and open it, and she tried it, and
it's just a natural almond.
It is. It just hasn't been toasted. It hasn't been processed. So. And then the kind of products you can find there that you want to definitely take with you. If you like honey, there is a lot of honey production, fresh honey, some of it made from they keep the bees near the lavender. So the honey actually has a little bit of that infusion of the lavender. So honey, almonds, níspero, which I don't even know how you call níspero in English.
It's apricot.
It's not apricot.
It's not?
It's not an apricot. It looks like an apricot.
It does.
It looks like an apricot, but it's not. The texture, the skin, it's quite different. So it's still sweet.
Yeah.
And interestingly enough, I don't know what it is with our tie-ins with Japan. It's like I want to move there or something. But there's a tremendous amount of export of Nisperos to Japan because the Japanese really like
if you had to sort of liken it to a fruit, I would say apricot is the closest.
Apricot would be the closest, with
you're right. It's not,
a little bit more acidic than apricot.
It's not but they grow wild.
Yeah.
You can just go on a walk and just pick them wild.
There used to be a ton more as well, but they started changing that for the production of avocados.
Oh, really?
Because everybody's just so crazy about, avocado and everything, avocado on toast. Everyone's become avocado obsessed, and I think people started figuring out in the area that, hey, it's probably more productive for us to sell avocados than nísperos, because also nísperos are very delicate.
Yeah, they're very,
So avocados, last a long time, and nísperos, like, you basically touch them and they get bruised, so it's it's a very, very delicate fruit.
Okay, so it's a beautiful town, Guadalest. It is accessible. The
Very
road,
accessible.
we talked to, it is a little bit of a white knuckle drive, not because...
And there's two ways to go. There's one that's way more of a white knuckle drive, and then there's like a new road that's very
a little
nice.
calmer.
Yes.
But the roads are good.
Yeah.
The roads are they're well paved. It's just you are driving up. It's a height. So if you're a little worried about that, just take your time.
Don't drink and drive, people, especially not up there. Okay?
And don't feel the pressure of somebody behind you who lives, one of the 300 people who live up there and know they'll pass you eventually. Just take your time.
Yes.
That's what I would say. And for such a small little town, all these very interesting, odd museums.
Oh my God. So we'll talk about it in our slice of life
in
a moment here. But yes, there are definitely some very odd museums. And without trying to be any kind of offensive or disrespectful to the people that own the museums, I think that some of the people that own them are a little bit odd also, because I think you have to be a little odd to own something that odd and dedicate your life to something like that.
Salt and pepper shaker.
It's like a very
museum.
specific thing. It's like, I collect, salt and pepper shakers. So so that kind of thing. But the other thing as well that I think for nature lovers, if you are taking a hike, especially around that area, there's a number of beautiful hikes. I would say watch out for the wild boar.
Wild boars are a thing here, and people think it's a joke, but it's actually a thing.
No, they're a thing, and they are.
I think I saw
they do
a
not
sign.
like people. Penguins like people. Wild boar do not like people.
No, I think I saw a sign on the golf course this week with the boar on it.
Oh yeah, it doesn't surprise. I've seen greens on golf courses destroyed by wild boar here.
I'm not joking. It's on the driving range.
Yeah, doesn't surprise me.
I went this week with my son, and I said, I think that's a sign for the wild.
They're
wild
cute.
boars.
Like, don't get me wrong,
out.
when they're little, they're cute, but they can be quite vicious.
It's a thing here. It is a thing. You have
and
to
also
be
you see a
careful.
bunch of little rabbits as well. There's tons of rabbit. Also, again, interesting with the food and the culture. When we went to Benifato for lunch, and I know Nalini was like looking at us because there was an interesting mix of things on the table.
Yeah.
But rabbit is definitely something that's very prevalent in restaurants in that area. Again, there's a lot of rabbit that are in that area.
Yeah.
So I think that's not weird to find. Specifically, my favorite is the rabbit with tomato sauce, because my grandma used to make that.
Oh, okay.
And I had it there, and it was absolutely delicious. So you'll also see some more gamey sort of dishes, because
it's typical.
again,
It's in the mountain.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
It's kind of what you would expect.
Even boar stew, that's not odd to find, but again, it's a kind of a tougher meat. So definitely I would say, if you have the chance to visit Guadalest, I would definitely take it and make a day out of it. Hopefully the weather's nice for you. Again, you can do the fortress, you can see the castles, you can see the museums, and you can go see the reservoir, take some beautiful pictures.
And have a picnic. Even if you don't want to eat in a restaurant, just take a picnic. There's lots of places where you can pull over safely and, have a nice afternoon.
Excellent.
Okay, slice of life.
All right, slice of life. So for the slice of life today, we're going to be trying a number of different things. So we decided we have something a little heartier from the mountain.
But we should talk before we get into, we can get into the food, but do you want to pour our drink?
Let's pour the drink.
Okay.
So I am going to try and not disturb the microphone here.
Okay.
So our drink, it is a licor de níspero, which it says serve very cold. So we've got a little bit of ice here, and it's a liquor made from the níspero. And this is actually made in Callosa, which is the next town to Guadalest, but we
bought it in
Guadalest
in the little market. But let's talk about our trip to the torture museum, which is it's just down. I mean, Guadalest is a very small town. It's quite easy to find. You get to the center of the village and hang a right and walk down the alley, and you will find a museum dedicated to torture.
So I have a little confession to make.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say this was fully intentional, but kind of a little bit, because I am someone that likes the odd things sometimes, and I have never been able to rope anyone in or convince anyone to go into this torture museum with me.
Except me.
And it was, one of these things I was like, oh, I'm curious, I want to go, but it's definitely not something I want to do by myself. And then I said to Nalini, let's just go in here. And she's like, really? I'm like, yeah, I think we should do it.
And we're like,
we
okay.
Went.
But yeah, I was with my 2 boys. Wait, cheers.
Cheers.
And your husband.
To Guadalest.
Yes.
Oh, that is very, very smooth.
Oh, it doesn't taste like water.
It's
very
not. Light. Let's see the...
What's the alcohol percentage on that? I'm just
15%.
Curious. Oh, it's not too bad. It's actually really nice.
Yeah, this is a nice, almost like a dessert wine almost. So it's a Níspero liqueur.
That's very nice. It mixes very well with my earlier martini.
Yum, yum.
But, okay, the torture museum, it is... I mean, it's not jokes.
No.
I mean, it's not some kind of...
It's actually very serious.
It's very serious
the
because
moment
they are
you walk in
ancient...
there, you feel like, okay, this is a space that you need to be respectful in.
Exactly. It's not one of these funny, kind of, Halloween-y type places. It's really a museum where they display torture devices from...
But not
the medieval times.
The real ones.
Yes.
So it's a collection of torture devices, some of them dating back to like 500,
Yeah. And they're, it's quite frightening.
A lot of stuff from the Inquisition.
Yes.
And that was not a good period for this country.
No.
So the Spanish Inquisition, I've always loved the history of witchcraft, witches. I find it quite fascinating. Yeah. And to me, the fact that some of the rationale behind some of what the people did during the Inquisition. So there were a ton of devices to figure out a lot of different methods to figure out if you were a witch or not. But if you think about the rationale behind some of these devices, it's absolutely crazy, because basically, for example, one of the things that they did is they would tie a bunch of rocks on your feet, throw you into the water.
Yeah.
And if you don't come back up, you're not a witch. Well, at that point, you're dead. So, what is the actual point of this? And this is like every device. Oh, we're going to burn you. And if you burn, that means you're not a witch.
They actually have a stake in one of the back little areas.
Yes, they do. Stake. They have an actual stake.
Yeah.
And what was crazy, what we found out about that is what would kill the people that were burnt at the stake.
Fear?
Not just that, the fumes.
Yeah,
so the fumes from the fire.
Yes.
Thank goodness, because it would
that killed them before the actual
fire. So there's a stake. There was these what do you call those? The stretch, the ones that
spreaders, where they just pull your limbs apart.
Yeah, there's a lot of crazy stuff. And one of my first comments to Nalini when we went in there is, okay, if human creativity, can create this, you would think if people use this kind of creativity for the good, we'd be in a much better place as a society.
Exactly.
Because the amount of stuff that you think, how would someone 1,000 years ago think of creating this for the purpose of torturing someone else?
Torture. And also, what was wrong with humanity?
A lot.
It's actually a really... it's an interesting place. I wouldn't take kids in there.
No.
Not that it's...
Do not take your kids in there, especially if they're little.
Yeah. Okay, there's nothing gory in there, but it's just very... there's no way you can explain anything in there. Hey, what's this table for? To rip you from limb to limb.
Yeah. And also, there's a couple of very odd things. I'm going to ask you in a moment, Nalini, which piece shocked you the most, and
I don't
and then I'll describe mine. But I will say this. We asked the person that was at the front of the museum, and this is, again, going back to our little stories of how we do our content creation. Yeah. We just go up to people and ask, hey, can you give us a little bit of history about this? And it turned out he was the owner, and he owns a museum with his wife. They bought it from his parents.
Yeah, it's been through a few generations.
It is a private collection.
Yes.
And he told us it was so crazy going to buy all these different pieces from collectors that you can imagine. Someone that has a torture piece from hundreds of years ago has usually very odd collections.
Yeah.
So their experience is doing that. But he said something that really stuck with me.
Yeah.
He said, people come in here and they go, oh, the cruelty. He said, we still torture people, just in a different way.
It's true.
Obviously there's wars and there's all kinds of things still going on. But apart from that, he said, we torture people on social media.
Yeah.
There's people hating on each other and trolling each other.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that's as bad as the stretch chair there.
No,
but it's still, it is true. It was a good reflection.
He was very philosophical.
Very. Actually, very interesting moment there of like, oh, wow,
And again, we walked in, we paid. And for anybody going to Guadalest, you should budget a little bit of money for, if you're going to the museums, they are not free. No. There is a bit of an entry fee. It might be 5 or 10 euros. Yeah. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah.
But, and I mean, when we say museums, they're not necessarily,
they're not like 10,000 square feet.
Yeah, they're small little museums. So just pick and choose what you want to see and just have that in your little budget.
But do it. Contribute to the economy.
Yeah,
Go
exactly.
to the museum.
It was he was just very philosophical. And again, we told him after the fact, we started asking him questions and we said, oh, we're actually doing a podcast. And again, he was like, oh, it was so interesting. And then just started telling us about the history of it. And there's a real there's a bit of a heavy energy when you go in there.
So if you believe or you don't believe in, any kind of like energetics, but spirituality, you walk in there.
It is heavy.
You can feel it. It takes you a few minutes when you walk out. There are a lot of people who suffered in the devices that they have in there and suffered very horrible things. So, and he did say, we took pictures and took videos, but we didn't sit on the chair or anything like that.
No.
And he said the amount of stuff they've had to like remove spikes or something because people will go, I want to take a picture in there. What? And like they'll literally like sit on the chair and he's like, they're making kind of fun of it. I'm like, not criticizing, but man, like be respectful because like you said, there is a heavier atmosphere. We did ask him if we could go for Halloween. He said yes.
They're open on Halloween.
Yeah, so it's like,
so
like definitely that's the Halloween plan coming up there. So let me ask you, Nalini, what was your most shocking piece in the museum?
I would say, not that it was shocking, but that a lot of the pieces were to torture women specifically, and generally on the most sensitive parts on a woman's body. They have specific devices for that.
Yeah, which again, if you think about the people who were performing the torture were mostly men.
Yeah, so it's a little disturbing. Interesting. It is history. It is,
but it is disturbing.
It is disturbing.
So one that really I cannot forget. It's like, first of all, society at different points has had a thing about ridiculing people in the streets. That's something that is interesting. Like they had a lot of these masks that they would put on people if you were like the town drunk and they paraded you with this mask. One of the masks for torture was this metal mask that almost looked like a Hannibal Lecter sort of thing.
Yeah.
And it had like a tube in front of it, and it was like a metal tube. And this device was designed to stick a rat in there and then close it.
Yep.
And the only way out for the rat was to eat through your face. Yeah. So it's like, this is it was so gory. Like I was thinking like, oh my God. Like,
there's no technology in there. There's no interactive.
No.
It's actually a very old fashioned type of museum in which you have to read the information. There's no, pressing buttons or anything in there. You read it and you think, oh, okay, this is real.
Like, is this for real? Yes, it is. And this is the original piece. So that's a little about the torture museum.
Yes.
Let's talk about what we have here food wise. I'm getting hungry. So,
well, I said since we're doing something on a little mountain town, I would do some lentils.
So can we try them?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's try them. So I made these.
Let's see. So here's a spoon.
I just tried to make something that I thought would be, hearty. And lentils, by the way, are very common in
Spain.
Yeah.
Yes. And a lot of times when you eat lentils in this area, they'll have chorizo, they'll have ribs, so a lot of kind of pork in there.
I don't eat pork, so I always make it without.
So this is our vegetarian option for, it's delicious though.
You like it?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's actually really good. And I made a cake, which we can try.
So tell us a little bit about the cake, Nalini.
The cake, I did it with olive oil. It's an olive oil orange cake. And I took actually olive oil mandarin because I took, hold on a second. I took the mandarins off my tree.
Right.
And that's pretty much
So what are the ingredients? Is it like flour, olive oil,
It's flour.
mandarin juice?
Yeah.
And then one more thing
Yeah.
that maybe you can put beside is we have
nice.
the almendras garrapiñadas, which is the almonds coated in sugar that then gets toasted.
These are good.
So we're bringing the crunch back to the episode.
Do you want some?
Yes. So here's this is like an ASMR. Is that what you call it? ASMR experience within the podcast. Wait.
Okay, I apologize if the cake is not good.
Oh my God. Almond. I love almond.
Well, it's mandarin olive oil cake, which maybe doesn't sound appetizing, but
Let's try. Oh my God. It's delicious.
the cake is good.
Okay, so I kind of like the cake with the almond.
This cake is good.
Really good.
Wow.
Okay. Try it with the Nispero liquor.
Listen, I'm not even joking about it. It's good.
We're going to have to do an episode on dieting.
We did a good job. I'm not a baker. I don't like baking, so
But
the fact that it comes out.
we want to share the wonderful foods from the area with all our listeners.
This is delicious. Okay.
So, we are heading into
Phrase of the day.
phrase of the day. Whoop, whoop. Okay, so for this phrase of the day, it's an old phrase, and I tried to do something related to the mountain, given that Guadalest is in the mountain. So I'll say it in Spanish first, and then we'll talk about the meaning. It's got a little bit of mysticism to it, so I thought it would also be appropriate with what we talked about with the Torture Museum and everything. Okay, so it is el que va al monte y no coge romero, no encuentra el amor verdadero.
Wow, that's a lot. Okay. So
El que va al monte y no coge romero, no encuentra el amor verdadero.
okay. I got there's rosemary in there.
Yes.
Okay.
So who goes to the mountain and doesn't pick up rosemary, does not find amor verdadero.
Love.
True love.
True love.
Whoever goes to the mountain and doesn't pick up rosemary doesn't find true love.
Oh, wow.
Yes. So this one's not like a kind of trying to figure out if there's a meaning to it.
Yeah.
It's more a little bit, like I said, mystical, because apparently rosemary had the power to attract, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
supposedly when you go to the mountain, you pick up rosemary to find
okay.
love. Or to
Nice.
strengthen your love.
That's nice. Yeah, and it's growing wild in Guadalest.
It's everywhere.
You can find it very
It is
easily.
everywhere. Rosemary and thyme as well.
Oh, nice. I like that. Okay, I didn't have to figure out what it
Yeah,
what it
this
meant.
one no, but I just wanted to do something that was a little bit related to the
That's really
mountain.
nice.
El que va al monte y coge romero, el que va al monte y no coge romero, no encuentra el amor verdadero.
Okay. So next time you're walking through the mountains, pick up some rosemary. There you go. All right, cheers,
See
Laura.
you soon, and please leave us a comment.
Yes.
We look forward to hearing from you.
Yeah.
Until the next episode, where we're going to be talking about beauty products from Spain.